Hey friend, welcome back to the Famous Warrior YouTube channel. If you haven't yet already subscribed to this channel, please do. Don't forget to click the bell icon so that you are notified each time a new video is put up. If this video encourages you, like the video and share it with someone that you think will be encouraged by it too. Do you ever wonder if you have what it takes to walk in purpose? If you haven't watched the previous video on purpose, you can do that to help get you up to speed. But just a recap, we define purpose as the reason for which we were created and the reason for which we exist as us and no one else. Our ultimate purpose is to partner with God to achieve His dreams and not just our own. I think when it comes to us actually having what it takes to walk in purpose, there are many things that we need to pay attention to, yes, but for me, they all kind of fall under the umbrella of being brave. And that's what I want to talk about today. Walking with God just in general is not for sissies. And if we want to actually do the thing of purpose and getting God's dreams accomplished on the earth, then we need to be brave. Here are 4 ways that I've learned to be brave over the years as I've tried to discover what my purpose is. So some of you may know that I actually served in what people would consider a full-time ministry at my church for about 8 years. I started in mid-2008 up until mid-2016. When I started, I started out as an intern. I was 17 years old and I was actually only supposed to work there for 6 months. I was waiting to go to university. I was going to study law, and in the 6 months between completing my A-levels and when uni was supposed to start, I figured why not make myself useful and maybe make a bit of pocket money, and I can go and serve at the church. Just before my 18th birthday, the Holy Spirit led me to fast, and to cut a long story short, that fast started a chain reaction that has actually brought me to where I am today. There were certain things that I was feeling unsettled about concerning my career path and whether or not I was supposed to do law and whether or not I was supposed to go to that university, and I just had so many questions, and all of a sudden I felt uneasy, and because of that I sought God. A side note, just for those of you that might be wondering, our careers are not our purpose. I know when you get out of high school, it's easy to assume that, for us to get to purpose, we have to choose the right career path and make sure that we study the right thing and make sure that we go to the right university. But our careers are not our purpose. They represent a big part of our purpose, but they are not the whole thing of our purpose. Anyway, back to the fast. During the fast and after the fast, I felt like God was calling me into ministry. And though I wasn't exactly sure what type of ministry, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I wasn't supposed to go to law school. And by that time, when I was making that decision, I had even been accepted to 2 different universities, and I was supposed to be going to start this new chapter of my life. Part of taking the steps required to be in the purpose that I am today needed me to be brave back then. And I actually want to just talk about 4 areas that I had to be brave in that still apply to me today and can apply even for you. The first one is we have to be brave enough to pray dangerous prayers and then to obey the instructions that God shares from there. We all have that "what's my purpose" question, and we don't have it just once in our lives. It's not like you have that question just when you get out of high school. All throughout our lives, at certain junctures, we're going to have that, "Lord, what is my purpose?" We feel a shift coming on, or we feel certain things changing in our career, or seasons in our parenting change, and we are back at the feet of God asking, "Lord, what is my purpose for this next season?" When we get into situations like that, we have to be brave enough to pray dangerous prayers. I call them dangerous because we never know exactly what God is going to tell us. It's one thing for us to pray and ask him what our next steps are, but then once he tells us, we are responsible. So sometimes maybe we're better off not knowing what he wants from us. Hence the bravery. We need to be brave, because once he tells us what he wants from us, once he tells us what the next steps are, once he tells us what we're supposed to do next, then we have to be brave enough to obey. The second thing is for us to be brave enough to ask the hard questions. When I was deciding not to go to law school, I had to ask God some hard questions. And the thing with asking God hard questions is that sometimes he'll ask us some questions back. He'll ask us questions himself, or he'll ask us questions that he wants us to answer for ourselves. One of those questions that he asked me that I needed to answer for myself was, why exactly did I want to be a lawyer? Why did I want to get into the field of law? And I had to sit with myself, young as I was, I had to sit with myself even back then and say, okay, Lord, what really is the motive? What is my motive behind this? And the truth was then, and still is now, is that I wanted to be a lawyer because I wanted to have money. I have an aunt, and one of her best friends that I was introduced to back then was a lawyer, and she was working as an in-house lawyer for a certain bank, and she drove a Dodge. Those of you who know me know that I'm not a car person. Sometimes I'm asked what car I drive right now, and I couldn't tell you to save my life. I always forget the name of the car, the type, the brand, whatever they call it, the make, the make of the car. I can't tell you the make of our vehicle to save my life, but back then I knew that she drove a Dodge, and to me that was like the sign of success. I would look at her car and just be like, yes, Lord, one day that's gonna be me. And being raised by a single mom and seeing her struggle to make ends meet, I didn't want that for myself. I wanted to get onto a career path that I knew would make the big bucks, that I knew would definitely be my cash cow, and I wouldn't have to worry about money. And when God asked me that question, Louise, why do you want to be a lawyer? I had to be real with myself. I had to be honest enough with myself to say, okay, if I actually trace this all the way back to the root, this is the reason why. And I know the type of person that I am, the type of person that God made me to be. And yes, money is important, but it's not the be all and end all for me. And if I had continued down that path just for the mere reason of I want to have money, I want to not have to worry about money, I was going to be miserable. And God knew that. And he had to get me to a point where I saw that for myself. In our efforts to, discover what our purpose is or get with God about our purpose, we definitely have to go to him and say, Lord, what are some things that you need to show me about myself, about what's in my heart, about my motives, about why I'm doing this, about why I feel the need to do this? Because when we get to the root of why we're doing those things, then we can really decide whether this is something we want to continue pursuing or not. Since that time, I've had to be brave enough to ask myself and even God difficult questions regarding my purpose. And I have to be constantly checking in with my heart to make sure that my motives are in the right place. So again, it's not a one and done thing. Purpose isn't this big question we ask ourselves when we get out of school or when we finish university and now we're looking for a job. It's an ongoing thing. And that brings me to the point that purpose changes. Your purpose is not this one thing that you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. Your purpose will change as your seasons change, as God begins to shift you into different seasons of your life. Your purpose will change for that particular season. The overarching purpose, again, is for us to make sure that we are partnering with God to achieve his dreams on the earth, not just our own. So his dreams are going to change depending on what season we're in. You might be in a season where for that particular season of your life, God's biggest and most important dream is for you to provide for your family, or for you to parent your small children, or for you now to serve at your church. So it just depends on what season that you're in. And constant checking in with your heart, constant bravery of, okay, Lord, I'm going to ask myself the tough questions and help my heart to make peace with what the answer will be, the truth of what the answer will be, so that then you can walk me through making the right decisions based on what the outcome of those questions is. The third thing is that we have to be brave enough to wait. Waiting isn't easy, especially when it comes to purpose. For some reason, it always feels so urgent for us to get started doing the big things and making waves for God. Like, okay, yes, Lord, I've committed. I want to make your dreams come true, so let's get started, you know? And back then, I also had to wait. I had to wait for what my purpose for that season was. At the time, I thought, okay, so I'm not going to law school, so definitely now I need to figure out which school I'm going to go to so that I can, pursue this ministry thing. I started looking at Bible schools. I applied to Hillsong College. I got accepted, and I didn't go. I didn't go because it wasn't God's time. Like, I was here busy trying to plot out the steps that it was going to take for me to get to this purpose of, okay, God, you've said full-time ministry, so let's get started. The impatient me wanted to get started right away, but God was saying, no, wait, be patient, and stay faithful here. The time will come if you stay faithful. If you continue to be faithful with what I've put in your hands, the time is going to come for me to now walk you through to the next step. And that's something that we overlook when it comes to purpose. It's easy to be out here like looking for purpose, looking for that big thing or that big destination, the arrival at that destination. But purpose isn't that big thing. Purpose is several small things and several steps that all end up adding up. It's our accumulated submission to small God moments that then snowball us into purpose. So purpose is changing the poopy diapers. Purpose is making room for date night with your spouse. It's learning to hold your tongue when you're tempted to talk back to your parents. It's stopping what you are doing to look your child in the eye and correct them because they said a bad word to their sibling, which I have to do often. God will keep our hands full with such things. The mundane, small things that we feel are a waste of time. He'll keep us busy with such things for durations of time because he wants to test us. To us, it seems like it's a waste of time and it's keeping us from doing that big thing. Like, okay, Lord, you've called me into full-time ministry. Why am I still here doing this minuscule thing or mundane thing? I want to be out there doing the big thing. But he'll keep us there for long periods of time to test us. And then when we pass that test, then he'll say, okay, I got you, you've gotten that, now let's go to the next level. But there are always going to be seasons when we are waiting on God with our purpose. It's not going to just happen at the snap of a finger. And usually God will show us glimpses, but because we think, okay, now I've seen the glimpse, let me run with it. He's like, no, hold on. We're in a season of waiting now because I want to test you. I want to see what can come out of you when you're in this season, when you're feeling like you're just twiddling your thumbs and you're looking at time passing by. There is a quote that I like that says, you never really know a person until they don't get what they want. I think God uses that a lot. He makes us wait and delays our gratification, delays us from getting what we want, which is to get busy doing the big thing. He delays that so that we can then see what's really on the inside of us. And that's so that we can see it for ourselves. Sometimes we can think that God is keeping us from doing purpose. He's keeping us from doing the big things today. But actually, he knows that if he gets us into those big spaces today, the version of us that we are right now wouldn't be able to handle it. We have to be brave enough to wait well. So it's not just about waiting. We have to wait well. We shouldn't complain and just be counting down and just looking at the clock. Lord, when is this going to end? I'm so tired of this. When am I going to get to the big things? When am I going to get to the action? We need to stop doing that and actually savor the moments. Wait well, learn and grow while we are waiting. Even now, I am still in a season of waiting. You can think, oh no, she's arrived. She went through that season. She did the ministry thing. Now she's a mission entrepreneur. She's doing, big things. And yeah, there's truth to that. But still, like I said, there's going to be bursts of seasons of waiting throughout our walk until we see him face to face. We're going to have seasons when we are waiting. And so even now, I'm still learning to be brave enough to wait on God well. Again, it's not just about waiting. It's about waiting well. You can't keep on asking, are we there yet? Are we there yet? When is this ending? Are we there yet? Like, you have to wait well. Ask God, what does he want you to learn in this season? What can you do better in this season? What are some things that you can focus on so that when you get to the next season, you would have some ground covered. You would have put some things in place that will set you up for what he has for you in the next season. Last but not least, we have to be brave enough to pivot. Most of the time, our purpose isn't what we think it is in the beginning. God shows us glimpses of our purpose and what it could be, but then before he finishes talking, we run off and we're like, hey, let's go and make it happen, Lord, let's get cracking. When we do that, we get off track. And when we get off track, we then have to be brave enough to say, okay, Lord, I'm sorry. I ran off without you. I wasn't listening fully. I did the thing in the way that I thought I was supposed to do the thing, and I didn't listen. And now I'm back, and help me to pivot. Other times we hear him correctly, we wait well, and we're actually putting our hand to do the thing that he wants us to do for that season. But then, like every other season, a change comes. We start feeling a shift. And God is then asking us to prepare to get into something new. For me back then, it was pivoting from law school to children's ministry. Then when I got into ministry, finally officially working in ministry at my church, I had to pivot from administration to children's. When I finally got the groove of what I was supposed to be doing in children's and realizing that is what God actually called me to do, to work with children and work with people who love working with children, I got into a groove of building teams and writing curriculum and all these things that I thought, okay, yes, this is finally it. Then God added young adults. And I'm like, children and young adults, that doesn't even go together. How am I going to balance this thing? When I had finally gotten into a groove of balancing children's and young adults and preparing sermons and preaching to young people for the first time and figuring out what songs would be on the set list and all these things that were completely different from what I had been used to with working just with children, then God said, no, it's time for a shift. And that shift at first I thought was that I had to choose between either children's or either young adults. And I was like, Lord, no, I don't want to have to choose. I had fallen in love with both of them. I had gotten into a rhythm of balancing both. And I felt like I was in my element in doing both things. And God was like, no, it's time for a change. And the change was actually pulling me out of working in the church altogether. And that threw me off. Completely threw me off. I felt like a fish out of water. And it took me a while to get my head wrapped around the fact that my purpose for this new season was now to be working in my business. A business that I thought I was going to just be doing on the side part-time while I worked at the church until I died. Like, I actually thought that was my purpose. Lord, you called me into full-time ministry. You called me into children's ministry. Okay, now I see you adding on young adults. I see what you're doing here. Okay. But I actually thought that I was going to work at the church until I died. And when God asked me to leave, I felt lost. I felt completely thrown off, completely lost. And it took me some time. But again, back to asking God, questions, back to asking God what my motives were, back to asking him different things. Then I got into a rhythm of working in my business and developing my staff. And I got into this whole rhythm again. And then COVID happened. And all that was taken away from me. And I was back to square one. Back to facing myself and facing what I thought was the loss of my purpose, what I thought was God, taking away his calling. Lord, you said you had called me to children's, and now look what is happening. I literally thought that God had just forsaken me, forgotten all about me, and I had to get back to, okay, Louise, snap out of it. You have to be brave again. Let's start again. Let's go to God in prayer. Let's ask God the questions. Let's be brave enough to obey. Let's be brave enough to ask myself the tough questions. I had to ask myself the tough questions all over again. And one of the questions that God asked me was, who said that I pulled you out of working full-time at the church so that you can work full-time at the school? I never said that. He said that to me. He was like, I never said that. I never said that this is why I did this. You have 2 kids here at home now doing online learning. Purpose to mom them. They will get back in school sometime, but in the meantime, you and them have to learn to wait without killing each other. And I was like, Lord, did I say I wanted to live a life of purpose? I lied. I take it back. I can't do this. This is too hard. But spending time with my kids day in and day out taught me a lot about myself. It taught me a lot about my kids and the kind of legacy that I want to leave for my kids. I got to enter their world, and it showed me a perspective into what God meant when he said he was calling me into children's ministry. So again, back to the things that we feel are too small while we're out there chasing purpose. I had been called into full-time ministry. I had worked at a mega church for as long as I did. I had built this big team, and I had ministered to over 700 children. But that doesn't mean that what I was supposed to be doing in that season then was beneath me. So I did purpose. And purpose in that season was me cleaning my house. It was me cooking. It was me playing with the kids. It was me fighting with them about the online school and trying to play teacher, which really didn't go well. And yeah, some days were better than others. And that birthed a new thing that I'm doing in this new season. God began to stir up some new things in me, and I had to now put my hand to faithfully do that. Being brave isn't easy, but nothing about living a life of purpose is easy. I think that's why many people just go with the flow and I'll just do me. Because if we're really going to do life with God and partner with him to accomplish his dreams on the earth, we have to toughen up. We have to face each day bravely. We have to be brave. There's just no 2 ways about it. I hope this has inspired you and encouraged you. See you in the next video, and remember that your chance to fight is a privilege.